What is up, everybody? We are back for the Oasis podcast. Another week, another podcast.
Glad to be here.
We're excited, but we're back.
We are back.
We're back.
That we are.
I got one question for you. What's one thing that you wish you were more involved in? Like activity, area.
So I like to consider myself a retired athlete.
Okay.
Right. I hung up the boots. Boots is soccer lingo for cleats. If you guys didn't know. Yeah, I'm dropping all the terms on you. Okay. I hung up the boots when I probably my freshman or sophomore year of college. I came to STCU. I played on like the club team, so you can kind of sign up and there's some tryouts, and it was fun. I got to wear a Jack's jersey for a little bit, but eventually I was like, I got to be done. Dogs got to get rid of the old bone. Don't think that's the saying.
I thought you were talking about dogs and feet. Got to give them a rest.
Those two. It's nice not having calluses from cleats and stuff all the time. But if I could, I'd get more involved in something like that again. Last year, I did a good job. There was a lot of different leagues and like international students and just like community members who came together and played. And so I would do that. But a lot of times it was on Sundays. And I'm like, guys, so let me tell you about this dude, Jesus. And I have to work on Sundays because of him. And they didn't get it. They didn't move the league for me. I wasn't good enough for them. So this year I haven't done it as much. But I'd love to play soccer more often.
Yeah.
So that's a long story to say soccer.
Say soccer.
Yep.
But
There you go.
shout out all my retired athletes out there.
Yeah, I have mine. So my big one was climbing. Like I'm just an absolute like climber.
Granola climber.
Yeah.
Granola boy.
Fake granola living in Brookings. But like I'll see a tree, like I'll climb it. Like I see a cool rock, I'll climb it. Like
You're one of those.
I'm a monkey, pretty much.
Every youth pastor's worst nightmare.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Pillars in the church, climb them.
Yep.
Are you a climber like that? You like to climb like buildings?
Not buildings,
Okay.
no.
I had college friends who,
You don't free climb?
yeah, they would climb.
No,
would climb like
bouldering.
They'd climb like
Yeah.
buildings on campus, and I was like, "That's not it for me, guys. I'm out on that."
Yeah. That's
Yeah. But growing up in Rapid, it was something that like I was surrounded by and I never got into. And then as soon as I moved to Brookings, I started climbing at the gym, the Welly.
Yeah.
And I was like, freak, I'm missing out.
Really
And
like
all
this.
like every summer I've worked with harnesses for like the past 4 years. Like
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by climbing and everyone for fun goes climbing and I haven't taken advantage of it. And I'm like, frick, I'm going to go climb a corn stalk out in the field.
You could. Jaena, what about you? What do you?
I really love and I miss musical theater. Just theater in general.
Shout
so
out
if I
Hunchback
could,
of Notre Dame.
yeah.
I thought you were going to say musical theory. And I said, that sounds
I do that.
horrible.
Enough. So if I had the time, I would love to do like community theater, the like non-professional. I don't know what they call it.
Do they have something like that in the summer?
I mean, the community theater runs like all year long.
Okay.
But then like the Prairie Rep,
Yeah.
I think in Brookings, it's
Isn't that like another step up though?
semi-professional, I guess. Yeah. If I had time, I would love to do that, but I don't have time.
What did we talk about last night? You got to create time for things you love.
I know, but that's a lot of time.
I know.
Try to.
But if you love
create.
it,
That's
maybe you
true.
should.
Maybe someday.
Yeah. Last night
We'll
at
see.
Leadership, here's a side tangent for you. We
Sure.
talked just about like, I think we should do more things we love as people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? When we get stuck in like just the rut of life, and sometimes when we get really busy, the things that go first are the things that we're passionate about, like soccer or rock climbing or musical theater. When God has created us and gifted us to love those things. And sometimes one of our best defenses against sin and like temptation and strongholds is just to fill ourselves up with things that we love. And when we're full and when we're healthy and when we're good, it's harder for the enemy to have those strongholds. So, pastor prescription, here you go. Do more things you love this summer.
Amen.
Let's wrap this thing up, all right?
See you next week.
Yep.
No,
And
we can get into it.
But on that same line, I think one of the misconceptions that people have when coming into church is that serving in the church isn't fun. And that's one thing that I think I had a misconception of. I mean, growing up in a church that wasn't the most vibrant, I thought it was always boring. And so coming into a church that is very vibrant and like has fun and has great community.
Yeah.
Like stepping in and serving was something that I was always looking forward to. Like my second year at Oasis, I got involved in the ministry team, and like I had so much fun pulling up at 7:15 for prayer every week. And so that's what we're talking about today, is just getting involved and how that can help the spiritual walk, and especially when looking to the summer of, where we're just about to wrap up the academic year. And so maybe if you're a college student, you're headed back home. If you're a young adult, you're staying here and life slows down a little bit, maybe there becomes a little bit of free time and a new set of rhythms and some changes along with that. And so we just want to talk about what does it look like to get involved, because it's something the church talks about all the time. I know from venue hosting at Oasis, I tell you to get involved all the time.
Yeah, the announcements are full of it.
And so there's good reason behind it. And so we just wanted to take a moment to kind of jump into that, dive a little deeper, and why it's important and what can that look like.
Yeah. Maybe let's just start with like different ways people can get involved in church.
Yeah.
And this is kind of blanket statement. Obviously, we provide these at Oasis, but they're frequently offered at all churches. So something like small groups.
Yeah.
Right. We push small groups all year round, all the time, because small groups are a really good way to get involved. That when you join something like Oasis or even a Sunday morning congregation, there's so many people and faces. It's almost like we get paralyzed in figuring out who do I connect with, right? You just get lost in the sea of people and you don't know how to take that next step to get involved and to connect with a group of people. I even have a lot of conversations where people will leave like a Sunday morning or a Sunday night and they walk through the foyer and they just are like, everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
Right? They start to be fed this lie that like, I'm the only one that doesn't know anybody here. But what usually happens there is those people are talking to the other people they're in small group with and they're friends from the outside of Oasis. And so not everybody knows each other. They just have some sort of connection back to the ministry on a smaller scale. And so you could have that too if you joined a small group and you start to put some roots down in there and get involved in that way.
Yeah.
Right? That's a really, really good way for you to start to get involved wherever you go. Right? If your church has got small groups this summer, maybe you can get involved in something like that. I know Oasis does a small group June, July, August here in the summer. So if you're in Brookings, you can join us for that. Or maybe even just starting one.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Like, I think people maybe go home and they're like, I don't know, my church isn't doing it this summer. Or like, there's not an opportunity for me. What does it look like for you to approach a pastor and be like, hey, I'd love to start a small group with some of my friends, and just ask them to support you and pray for you and resource you for what you need? Maybe a good way to get involved.
Yeah.
What's another way people can get involved?
Get involved by just going to church.
Yeah.
It can be easy in the summer when schedules are maybe less organized or differently organized than during your school year if you're a student. But make that a high priority, that you're going to be there, you're going to invest. I know that I sometimes have the tendency to, I'm going to come in the door, do the worship, get out. But that's limiting my capacity to be involved. So what does it look like to check up with your neighbor who you haven't seen in a while and have a conversation after church, or reconnect with a friend, or just hang out in that space and be okay, maybe like standing alone for a little bit, a little awkward, but to just be involved in that way.
Yeah. It's almost like lingering.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a good way to put it.
Linger in the space and see what God might have for you there in sense of getting involved.
Yeah.
That's good. Dylan, you got anything?
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but just using your gifts and talents to like literally like hands-on serve in a way. And so like for us that at Oasis, that could look like, the ministry team, the leadership team, worship, production, stuff like that. But so let's hop in a little bit deeper into this conversation. Let's just set the foundation of why this is just first important.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what we talk about a lot of times is we are communal people created for community, and we need each other. And the church is meant to be a place where we connect. It's a group of people that can have like-minded values and motivations and goals, trying to become like Christ together. But it's hard to connect, right? It's hard to find people. It's hard to make friends and all those different things everywhere you go, including church. And so getting involved is a way to take that step, right? It's a way to start to have that connection, to break what is big down into smaller things so that you can have your need met. I was listening to a podcast the other week, and they were talking about loneliness, right? And there's statistics out there that we're kind of being labeled as the lonely generation, just more connected through social media or internet or digital means than ever before, but feeling like when the studies are done, I think it was 75% of Gen Z people described feeling of loneliness in the last like month or 2 months is the study I was looking at. It was just astronomical. It was crazy. It was really heartbreaking. And when I was listening to this podcast, they were talking about, okay, what's changed, right? And some of it is the digital side and some of it's that, but like a lot of times people are still in the same spaces. Like we're still attending church and we're still going to class and we're still at work. But they were talking about how loneliness isn't cured by proximity to people. It's cured by connection to people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you have to have actual connection, and connection usually attaches itself to like feeling words in true conversation, right? So even when we ask people how they're doing or what they're doing or like what they did this weekend, we list a lot of actions. So we show up to church and like someone's like, hey, how was your weekend? And you're like, yeah, it was good. I went to the football game. But you just listed an action and that didn't like connect or have a deep enough meaning for you to overcome loneliness. So when we start to get involved and maybe sign up for groups, or we show up and we make a friend and we sit down, we have coffee, like we actually start to have these conversations where we tell people, I went to the football game and I was happy, or like I watched a movie and it made me feel sad, or like I struggled with feeling lonely. And when you admit those things and you say what you were feeling, that creates a spark in you that actually bridges a connection that starts to wield back some of that loneliness. And I was sitting there thinking, yeah, right? We're so information based, and I'm way off, I feel like, topic now, but like we're so information based and we live in a generation that's so lonely, and it's because we're not telling people anything about what really matters. We're just giving people facts. Yeah. And we do that even in church, and so it's hard.
Yeah, we keep submitting to the lie that our feelings don't matter because we are so surrounded by information. It's only, okay, what are the facts? And
some of it, I think, maybe is we don't know what to feel. Yeah. We don't know how to process feelings, and so we just shove them down or put them away or compartmentalize them, and that's further compounding our own loneliness.
Yeah.
It'll blow up in your face one day.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, what was the question?
Yeah. I mean, I can take another reason of why it's important if you feel like we've hit community really well.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'll watch this segue. I think I hope I'm not about to let everybody know. So if we're created for community, and even as we talked about just a couple of weeks ago at Oasis, that the greatest command that God has given us is to love him and to love others. And part of being in community and loving the people around you and loving God is sometimes serving them.
Yeah.
You know? So we'll start with serving God. You can get involved by serving God, and that can be in the church. If you've got a specific gift that God has given you, use that to give him glory. Use that to serve him, and in that you get to serve others in that. Yeah. So if God has gifted you with a musical skill, go home to your church and offer to serve on the worship team for the summer. Or if you really like hanging out with kids or middle schoolers or high schoolers, offer to like go to camp with your youth group for the summer, or serve in that way. And if you look at your church and you're like, I don't feel like I fit any of these places, look at your gifts and say, what do I have to offer the body of Christ? What do I have to offer God and give him glory, and how I can serve, and bring that to your church. Say, hey, I'm really skilled at this and I want to serve. Is there a place for me? How can I spearhead this? So,
and I think sometimes we flip that. We look at the church and we see what other people are serving in, and we pigeonhole that's what service looks like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I see the worship team and I see someone playing the guitar, but if you've noticed the last couple of weeks, we've got this guy named Josh who's playing the violin.
Yeah.
Right? And so if someone sits there and they're sitting in the worship center and they're saying, well, I play the violin or I play the cello, but you never have imagined this is the gift I could offer to the church. You're just like, oh, all they ever need is a guitar player. It's flipping it. It's not necessarily looking at what are other people doing. It's what can I bring to the table, right? If you're not good with babies, but you're good with numbers, maybe you offer like to help with budgets at the church,
or take attendance,
or like help program something, right? I don't know, like if you're good with social media,
shout out,
right? Like. And you like doing that and connecting, and you've seen your church doesn't necessarily have those means or that ability.
You're all about them trends.
Maybe that, maybe that's your gift to the church, right? We have ladies here who who are amazing cooks, right? And so they're not looking at the pastor thinking, you know what, I probably should be a better preacher so that I can offer my gifts. No, they're like, hey, I'm a cook.
Yeah,
I'm bringing that gift to the table, and so they cook meals once a month for college students. What do we have to offer that we can turn around and give back to?
Maybe it's not even your gifts, but your capabilities. So we do Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
You have a car, you're willing to give an hour to deliver a meal, deliver groceries, offer that up.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, we've talked about that. I think it was the series, the small series where Priscilla and Aquila, right? They were tent makers, and they said, here, Paul, have a job. right? And that was what they offered to him. And it's some of it is just opening our eyes to what we have to offer.
Yeah.
Even if it feels minuscule, it can be huge for a church.
Yeah.
That's good.
And even to take it a little bit outside of that, like there isn't a place in the church, like you can still do ministry in this way. You can still serve God in your workplace.
Oh,
That's true.
So good.
Like if you're a barista at Cool Beans, like that can be art, that can be worship, that can be like your service to God, like the intentionality, and like maybe like while you're making a cup of coffee, like you're praying for the person that's going to receive that. Like maybe if you're sitting at a desk, someone or like at an info desk and someone comes up and talks to you, maybe you pray for that person, like as you're having that conversation, or like after they leave. Like there can continually be things like inside and outside the church. This is not just limited to the church. But otherwise, to continue, you got something?
I was even thinking about loneliness. Like, what does it look like to start like a group that's made, like not a Bible study, but like a book reading club?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you just like, maybe you invite people from your church that you also know like to read, and you just read a book. And then you're not like sitting down like, okay, we're going to study the Bible together, but we're going to read a book and we're going to have conversation and we're going to spend time together. Like that can be a service to other people in your community.
Or for those not book lovers, start a movie club. Go buy a whiteboard.
Movie club,
Go
video
rank.
gaming club.
Yes.
If you like to set fires, do campfire nights. I don't know.
We want to
love
be a
committing
little careful with that
arson.
one. If you really like fire, maybe talk to the pastor before you start a group around burning things.
I got carried away.
That's fair. And I'm just thinking like Ephesians 4 lists some gifts that God has given to the church. And so Ephesians 4:11, so Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, the teachers to equip his people for works of service that the body of Christ may be built up. And we look at that and we see 5 different giftings, or like, it's not personalities. It's giftings. It's the best word for it, that God has given to the church to be able to build up his body, right? And so we recognize in each of us, there's probably one of these giftings that we're better at, right? For me, I'm a teacher. I love taking something and making it plain or simplifying it for others. I want others to understand, to be able to know these things. Do you guys
Yep.
you know what you are though? Like what you would lean in these ones?
Similar.
Read them again.
It's I should have it memorized. Apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. So apostles are usually the ones who go and like bring others in. Prophets are the ones who are like the truth speakers. Like they're the ones who, they don't necessarily, it doesn't mean predicting the future, but tell truth in our current context, which can be really powerful. Evangelists, the one who get people excited. Pastors, the shepherds, when the ones who have the empathetic heart. And teachers, the one who like instruct.
Yeah.
I'm TP on fivefold.
What'd you say?
TP on fivefold. Teacher, prophet.
Oh, look at him abbreviating.
Was like, I could barely
Toilet
hear
paper.
you.
Yeah,
So far away.
he's
It's because
TP.
yeah,
He's Charmin.
He's Charmin.
He's ultra.
ultra soft, baby.
I'm a prophet pastor.
Okay.
So
That's good.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I lean really heavy teacher, and that's the gift I bring to the church in a lot of senses, right? Like I get to do that on Sunday nights with Oasis. I get to do that Monday nights with the leadership team. I get to do that a little bit in small groups. Like I sometimes think my small group leaders hope I taught a little less. But I can't help it. Like this is who I am. I read the scripture and I'm like, guys, do you see what James is talking here about humility? And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, okay, give me a whiteboard. Right?
We're going to unpack this.
We're going to unpack this. And it's just like all of a sudden we're on a 20-minute like humility talk through James 4. And that's just what I do, right? And so like, but that's who I can be in other places too, just like you're saying.
Yeah.
Right, when I show up in another workplace or in a friend group, or like, I like explaining board games. When we sit down and we unpack the board game and everybody looks at each other and there's like 3 people that don't know, and everybody's like, well, who's going to explain it? And someone starts explaining it, and I've learned to just let them do it, right? And like, I got to let them be messy and let them not do it perfect and let them be confusing. But I like being the one to explain it, right? I want to teach you how to play this game. I want to teach you how to put that together. I want to teach, that's who I am. And so I have that gift to offer.
Yeah.
And even though that there's 5 gifts, and so we can be
here.
quick.
Yeah.
There's 5 gifts in Ephesians 4 that we can quickly like pigeonhole. Like, if I'm teacher, like I have to be a teaching pastor at a church. Like,
so
no.
good.
We're like, you and me, like, we're both heavy teachers. Like, I'm a heavy teacher, but I do so through, like, art and film.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Like, you
The
do through...
medium is different.
Yeah. So there's tons of different mediums.
I mean, you can be a teacher in a small group.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can be a teacher as a volunteer helping others make coffee.
Yes.
Right? You can be a teacher on door greeter and tell people, hey, this is what I found to be the best way to greet people when they come in.
This is how you get hype.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's good.
Maybe you're more of an apostle. You just like including people.
Yeah.
Be the one to invite.
For sure.
To an
if you're an
event, set it up.
evangelist, like, I mean, you better bring the hype.
Yeah. Bring the energy.
Bring the energy. Like, get people excited everywhere you go. Like, you show up to class and everybody's dragging. Like, if you're the
Bring the
evangelist,
energy.
like, serve the teacher in that way and get people excited about learning today.
If you know Ben, if you know Pastor Ben, he's an evangelist heavy, and he brings the energy.
He brings energy.
Yeah. So,
For sure.
no, and
You
then
like caring for people. Lean into that pastoral
sure.
skill.
Yeah, I think
know?
that one's probably one that gets abused easy though, right? Because the ones that are empathetic, the people who really are good at caring for others, like, man, when you have someone like that in your life, like, it's so easy to go to them
Yeah.
and to like come to them. But there's a lot of people usually around them who want that same care. So if you have the pastor gift, just like steward it well.
Yeah.
Just care for yourself at the same time. And it's same with like when you talk about Enneagram, you're twos, right? Those are the feelings ones, right?
The ones that like to serve.
Helper,
The
yeah.
helpers,
The
yeah.
helpers, yeah.
Man, twos I feel like are just so needed in culture, but also can be very quickly like overused and abused. And so if you're a two, or if you're like a pastor, if you're an empath, like, what's the word? Empath? Empathy person, whatever. I think there's an abbreviation of that, how that rolls.
Yeah, there is.
Like,
Empath.
thank you. Like, yeah, care for yourself well too, and recognize that that's your gifting.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you can look at Romans 12. We won't go into it, but there's the motivational giftings that Paul has written out there, and you can bring those to the church. 1 Corinthians 12, you got your manifestation gifts and what it looks like for the Spirit to come in power in your life. And God has probably gifted you somewhere in there. And so it's not just Ephesians. This one's just one that we chose to talk about today.
Yeah. Just to kind of finish it up with why it's important, and then we'll get into a little bit more of what does it look like. It's just personal growth that if you serve on our ministry team or our leadership team here at Oasis, like last night we had a ministry team night where we have all like 60 to 70 ministry team people and leadership people come hang out, and like there's teaching there, and so there's building up of not only the community of spending time together, but there's building up in growth, in walk in faith, in personal relationship with Jesus. There's growth there, so it can be beneficial for you. It's not just a give. It's not just a you giving out and receiving nothing. And we'll throw around the phrase all the time here at Oasis that it's so important for us and for our leaders and for the people that serve with us that we want more for you than we do from you.
Yeah.
That we don't want to take everything from you and not give anything back.
Yeah. There should be life found in serving in a lot of ways. And even like, I feel like I've learned a lot about serving in the most mundane of ways. Like, I remember when I was a resident, I was putting away chairs after some event, and I was just feeling like a bum, right? I was like, I'm tired. I want to go home. Why am I the one putting away chairs? Like all this. And that was teaching me something. It was like, why do I feel like I shouldn't have to do this? Or like, why do I feel like when nobody's watching, I can't serve as well? Like, why would it be better if there were 3 people here watching how hard I was working, putting away chairs? And so I'm sitting there stacking chairs, and I'm like, God, why are you convicting me? So then you're sitting there, you're making coffee, and you're having a conversation with someone, and they start to speak truth, and you're like, oh gosh, like I was just making like a cool beans pot of coffee, but all of a sudden this person's dropping wisdom that I needed to hear.
Yeah.
And you're holding the door, and you're like, man, I really love when people feel welcomed, and God's teaching you what does it look like to welcome, and like you're just handing out high fives.
Yeah.
But the Spirit is moving. So that's cool.
Yeah. Super.
Yeah, let's wrap up.
So just a few more thoughts on what more can this look like?
Yeah, I would start with just evaluating that gift, right? You've heard us talk about those things. Go read those passages of Scripture, really open it up and see where might God have gifted you. And as you evaluate that and do the self-work, then bring that gift to the table.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be selfish with what God has given us. He's given you that gift to build up His kingdom and to serve.
From there, I mean, reach out, ask, are there needs
That's good
that you
too,
could fill?
yes.
You might never know unless you ask.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like this might circumvent a little bit of like some of what we said, but if there's a need and it's not in your gifting, maybe you still serve there.
Yeah.
Right? Every year, Every year, Nathan, our children's pastor, looks at me and he goes, "You want to help with VBS?" Vacation Bible School. And every single year, my heart says, no. oh, please God. Oh, please God, let me say no. But he has a need, right? And I've got time, and maybe time is just the only gift I can offer there. Yeah. Time and energy, because Lord knows children are not my gifting.
And they need the energy.
They need the energy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, kind of even like we said, just pioneering. Like, if you say, hey, I have this idea, shoot it to leadership.
Yeah.
If you're willing to take the brunt on it, like, there's a good chance that can come to fruition. So.
And if they don't, I mean, just trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be under leaders that you can trust. So when you bring your gift to the table and they maybe say not yet, or they try to point it in a new direction, just trust that the Spirit's working in them as well.
Yep.
But it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any last thoughts?
I don't think so.
Just go get involved this summer.
Yeah.
Go be a part of the church. Go be a part of the community. Don't take it off. Keep investing. God's got amazing things for us in these summer months.
And let it stir fire for even next year.
Yep.
Yeah,
so once you come back to school, once the academic year starts, maybe you go back to work a little bit more. Like, don't let that fall out. Don't let this just be a summer thing. Let it continue to be a lifelong pursuit of Jesus.
There you go.
That's good.
Sweet.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Thanks for joining us. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.